Well, hello everybody, I'm LA Little, and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. We take a look at these markets. We do it from a neoclassical perspective, meaning we look at what happened today and we ask ourselves, what does it tell us about the coming days? Do the show 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time. It's archived on YouTube under the channel LA Little. You can subscribe anytime content is pushed and you'll get notification, which is a nice thing. I had someone asking me again, how do you share? And I kind of like Metric. I've been listening to Metric. So if I wanted to subscribe, there's a way to subscribe here. But if I wanted to share, I just click, right? And it gives me all these ways to share: Facebook, Twitter, Google+, whatever. You just click on it. You can share this link. People can come to it. It's a nice, easy way for you to help me help you by sharing, what I do with others. And if you do so, I appreciate it. As far as what happened today, actually, let's go to the numbers first. It was pretty much a flat day. Really didn't get anything done. Yesterday was barely up. Today was barely down. The rest of the day was pretty much the same. Start lower, go higher, close lower. So really nothing happening, and it is almost a total repeat of what I said last night. The only difference is today you actually had the dollar take a whooping, down 1.5%. Bonds sold off as well here, and those were the big things. Everything else was about the same. So let's pop over and look at the chart. So I happen to have the IXC up, which is the NASDAQ. Let's start with it. Less volume. NASDAQ goes over under. That's bearish. 5,099. It gets to 5,100, so it just barely goes over the top, closes underneath it, has less volume. So it's the exact opposite of what we saw last night, where everything was going under and back over. If we look at the NDX does the opposite. It goes under, back over, so it's just like last night. If we look at the Russell goes over, back under, but has slightly more volume. And I think you're already getting the picture here. Very, very mixed. Here's the S&P 500. Now the S&P 500 actually goes under, back over, has more volume, which says it wants to test lower. Now these are not great signals. They're so-so signals, but they are what the market's telling us, and the market's telling us, hey, I don't know what the heck I'm going to do. Last night, at least, there was a bunch of them telling us, the ideal case was that this thing would try to push higher. It did try to push higher towards the end of the day, and then fell short of its goal. So don't know that tells us a lot. Let's go look at the OX markets, because that's where the action really was today, in particular with the dollar. So let's start with the dollar. I'm going to pull over the weekly chart on the dollar here. Now, I've been saying for quite some time that what we really have is we have, a range setup that's taking place, and that setup looks something like this, right? Where you have these different ranges that are, nested together here, about equidistant from each other and so forth. So what does this thing do? And if you remember when we were down here, I specifically said I thought this was going to hold, this was going to bounce, and it probably was going to try to make it to the intersection of these two. That's where it went. And then today, it just got walloped back down the other side. Now, we have the ECB in the morning, and that will probably be the tell of the tape with respect to the dollar. But right now, the dollar is trying to set up another little ABCD structure to the downside. In this particular case, it kind of looks like this. I don't know that it's going to fulfill, but that's the way it's starting to set up. Of course, the test would be when you come back down here, can you break underneath it? If you do, then you can get the extension down and you can make this a wider range. When ranges set up, you always want to look and say to yourself, okay, which way is this thing going? And is it a two-way range or a singular range, a one-way range? In other words, can I trade it both short and long, or do I trade it just long? And that really depends on how it got there. In this particular case, I would only trade it long. So as it comes back, I would be waiting to buy it again on the retrace. As it got up here, maybe I took some of my profits, because usually that first bounce doesn't get all the way back to the top. It builds out a range, Something like, what you'll see is you'll see something like, what you've seen here. Actually, you'll see it come down, go back up, come back down. Maybe it stops short and it goes back up all the way to the top, and then it comes back down. That's the sort of stuff that these do when they're building out and trading in some sort of a range. That whole consolidation period as it takes place, right? As this consolidation takes place, eventually the idea is that this thing is going to continue in whatever the direction was that it came into it. And in this case, that would be up, which is the reason you don't particularly want to short it, because if you happen to short it, say here, and it doesn't come back down, but instead takes off, well, then you're on the losing end of the trade. But if you're buying it, right, and let's just take an example. Let's say that you thought you were going to get the bounce here, you got the bounce, but you didn't sell it. Well, if you're trading it in the right direction, you're probably going to get another chance to get back out of it and still make money because you got the strength behind you. That's the whole ideal of a range and how the range trades work. And everywhere you look right now, there's range trades. And if you're going to make money in this market, you got to trade the ranges. There's nothing else to trade. So, I mean, breakouts are failing, whether they're up, whether they're down, it doesn't matter. Most of them are failing. You've got to go to the currencies, or you got to go overseas, or you got to trade ranges, and you got to even do that in those things as well. They're one-sided and two-sided. You want to understand which one is which and trade it appropriately. So that's the dollar. So the dollar is coming back in. How far is it going to get really depends on tomorrow. What does Draghi say? Does he beat the euro back down, or does the euro actually make that move? And let's look at that euro. Big spike up today, volume expands. Now this is a very crowded short trade right now. Everybody wants to be short the euro. And why? Well, because just like the dollar, this thing has a trend, and that trend is to the downside, and it's what it's been doing. Now it's consolidating. It could push higher, right? It could get up into the top of this bar pretty easy. So in other words, this could trade back up to this area here. That's a decent little push back up if it wants to make the run. But we really should withhold our judgment until we get a little bit more information. Right now, it's a range trade. The range is on the way down. If you want to be trading this, you typically want to be trading from the short side, not the long side. I don't see it as a two-way trade. That's the euro. But the euro has just the opposite of what we saw in the dollar, and this thing's 50% of the dollar index, so that's kind of what you would expect. And it's got a little ABCD trying to extend to the upside, and that could get it back up to here. If you look at this on a long-term time frame, right, the biggest push that this thing probably can make is back up to the retest regen off this prior swing point low. That's this breakdown bar here. That was the one that broke it down to start with. Top of that bar is about 118, I believe, 118.46. That would be quite a push. I mean, you're trading down here at 107, 108. So yeah, that would be a heck of a push if it made it up there. I don't know if it's going to make it up there, but that's possible. So, again, any of your trades, you got to know what's possible and what's probable. Possible, probably not probable. And so that tells me that, somewhere down here, if you're going to trade this thing, you let it bounce, you short it again. You keep doing that until it breaks to the downside, which is what you expect all along. Japan's can't lift. Got a lift today. Had a little bit more volume. Going to try to lift a little bit more. But again, just like we just looked at the euro, this is kind of a lead dog, so to speak, with respect to the euro. In other words, you came down, you consolidated, you broke down, you consolidated, you're breaking down again. That's kind of what people expect to happen with the euro, me included in that group. So that's the euro, that's the dollar. Okay, so when the euro gets stronger, the dollar gets weaker. What does that do? That should help your commodities. So if we look at the commodities, you've got some plays here that are starting to take place, so you're getting a push up on the commodities. For example, your oil market should try to work higher, and that's what it's doing. Your gold market should try to work higher, although so far gold hasn't been able to do much. Same thing with silver. So when you see these kinds of moves, what you're looking for is those other moves that take place off of it, because that's what everybody else is going to do as well. So that's the dollar, that's the euro, that's our markets. If I look inside the sectors look almost the same. When I come back, we'll take a quick look at the overseas markets and see if they tell us anything different.
At TA Today, we have many services that teach trading to our clients. You can use LA's tools to trade and or learn how to trade alongside LA using his neoclassical methodology. To earn these free services with no subscription or charge, go to our homepage, click on either the Tools and Earn Free Services or Trade with LA and earn free services. On this page, you can refer a friend. Fill out information about yourself and the friend you are referring, and you will earn up to 3 months of free service with no charge as long as your friend continues to be a subscriber. So remember, refer one friend and earn up to 3 months of free service with us. The more people you refer that sign up, the more months you earn. If you have any questions, let us know. Thanks from the TA Today team, bringing you tools and ideas to help you trade.
Okay, as we come back here, I'm just going to start and go down the list. I'll flip through all these because I haven't looked at them today either, so let's see what they look like. All ordinaries takes a big hit. You know, so much of this is currencies. I mean, if we go over and look at the Aussie, right, what does it do? Bounces, right? Look at that compared to this chart. You had a big push down on the Australian dollar. You get a push up in the market. Today, Australian dollar goes higher, market sells off. Currencies are moving things, folks, especially, you know, equity markets in general on these various countries. If we look at the Sensex, they had a rate cut today. Well, that rate cut didn't do much for them. Right back down the other way, volume expands, kind of taking away all that goodness we just saw. You know, I've been saying for a while the trade here is going to be when it comes back into this bar. I still expect that's going to try to get there. You know, and let me just point it out here if you haven't been watching me. This is the spot. That's where you want it to come to. You want it to come to the bottom of the support zone on the weekly chart. It's probably going to be the buy down there. And when you get those kind of buys, you want to have, you know, you're going to have to make them. And as I look at this is kind of interesting. I hadn't seen this before, but as I look at this, you know, my good buddy Charles Kirk, you know, he would be telling us this is a head and shoulders pattern, right? I mean, that's about as clean as it gets. And if that's really a head and shoulders pattern, this is your neck, right? I don't do this stuff that much anymore because I'm really more interested in how do things perform at critical price points. The price point to me would be here. You know, you've got a swing point low probably going to form here. It may not have time, but if you break that, you got 2 swing point lows underneath it, right? That should get you some decent juice to the downside, and they're just lined up here. And almost all these markets are lined up the same way with respect to this, right? Swing point lows all the way down. If they start breaking, right, there's stops down here. So you know there's going to be stops at this level. So getting back to that head and shoulders, let me do that calculation right quick since we're here. Let's see what the number is. So that's almost 30 even and 26.4, so it's about 360 points off of that. That would take you down to about 2060. Is that right? 2060? No, that can't be right. Let me do that number again. 30,000 26.4, so that's 580 points if I did it right. 580 points off of that. That takes you down to 20,000. Wow. That's a long way down. Yeah, that is a long way down. 20,000. Let me look over here. I'm kind of amazed by that number. 20,000 would take you all the way back to the breakout. Right? That would be, you know, and actually when you look on this chart, I mean, that is where eventually this thing would probably want to test too, right? You have the breakout, you have no retest regen. You go higher, you're way more than 6 bars. Boy, if it ever came back to here, that would be a screaming buy. But that is, if I'm doing the calculations correct, that's the number. And somehow I feel like I'm doing it wrong, but maybe somebody can point it out to me and make a comment on the show. I'm not going to spend more time on it. Brazil. Let's see what Brazil did. So Brazil pops the other way. I don't know what their currency did. I hadn't looked, but they got a decent one. Not much. Brazil's just a bounce. Okay, here's the CAC. So the CAC goes under, back over, less volume. Actually, more volume than yesterday. It trades into. Now this one's interesting, folks. So here's a sign we haven't seen yet. So here you have your high of your low. It comes into the high of the low. There's your volume on it, right? This bar. And you don't have nearly as much volume. So you test into it, you can't hold it down, you pop back up. This is going to try to trade higher tomorrow. So that's kind of the setup here on that one. Let's see if the DAX looks the same. So if I look at the German DAX, and that one doesn't. So you got here you have the same situation we have in our market. You got a mixed picture. Trades into the bar, can't get out of it. So the DAX is still trying to go test the bottom of the bar. So whatever Draghi's going to say tomorrow, it can be taken either way. I don't see it. I don't see a clean setup with respect to whatever he does. FTSE looks like it's going to try to trade higher. It trades into the high of the low, gets out of it, can't hold it, has less volume, and also it trades under the big bar with the volume and can't hold under it. So that one actually looks like it wants to bounce. My friends up in Canada, oh, they look as pitiful as us, doing nothing. Really no tell there. Let's look at the China H shares that trade on the Hong Kong. Not much telling there. Let's look at the Hong Kong itself. Not the Bovespa. Let's go to the Hong Kong market just a second. Let me grab that guy. Okay, here we go. Hong Kong. Boy, I still want to see it trade back to here. I don't know if it's going to, but that would be the better buy. This looks like it's going to trade lower. So you get a leg down, then you can't go anywhere, right? This, you got a swing point low sitting here and another one there. This definitely looks like it's going to try to get into the gap, into these two bars. So that one you just got to be patient on. Let's see what Shanghai itself did. I know it traded up yesterday, didn't get to the highs. Tonight is going to be an interesting night in Shanghai. I suspect tonight is the night that this thing's going to fail if it's going to. So that's the Shanghai, Indonesia. They've been hurting. Oh, and they're breaking down completely now. Let's look at the weekly on these guys. Back into the swing point high, hitting it with volume. So this is a bullish retest regen second occurrence. So your probabilities are slightly more than a coin flip that it will hold. Taipei, nothing there. And that's Nikkei is the last one. Let's look at that one. Okay, Nikkei also to me looks like it's about to set up the range trade finally. So here, this one is broken out. So you get a breakout, no retest regen, more than 6 bars. What you want to see this do is you want to see it come back into here. It's going to be a good buy if it does it. That's because it'd be after 6 bars, first test, probability is very high, and your trend's up. So you've got everything working for you. So that's a trade that eventually probably will set up. What does that tell us about tomorrow? Not a lot. We got a mixed picture in Europe. China, tonight's probably the night it's going to fail if it's going to. And Nikkei looks like it's flattening out. And I don't see much else. I don't see much else to tell us anything else other than what we already know, and that is that this too is a mixed market. A lot of data still to come. Data's going to, the data and the news flow is going to drive whatever happens, and that's about the economic data. And tomorrow's the biggest night for economic data. The other piece of it, of course, is what happens in Greece. All right, sorry I can't give you more, but that's really all there is to tell. Sometimes you just don't get a lot to work with, and right now, that's the way this looks to me. Thanks for joining me. Tell a friend, tell two, share me if you will. Have a great night. See you next time. Good night.